Welcome back to Cosmic Comics. I was looking forward to playing Cyberpunk 2077 until its notoriously bad launch, so I'll tuck that away until all the bugs are worked out, or never. The list of games on my to-play list is already long enough. To help get over the disappointment, and after seeing issue number 1 of Cyberpunk 2077 Trauma Team on the shelves of my local comic shop, I decided to dive into the world of Cyberpunk 2077 comics, and with only 4 series or stories out to date, all of which were published in 2020, here in order from what I consider to be the worst to the best is a quick review of all the Cyberpunk 2077 comics as of February 2021. But first, a quick side note. The names of many of these writers and artists are not names I am familiar with, so please forgive me for any mispronunciations. The worst of Cyberpunk 2077 comics is Where's Johnny?, published by CD Projekt Red for digital release via a Rockstar Energy / 7-Eleven early access tie-in. This series is or was available through the 7-Eleven app through 7 rewards via purchasing Rockstar Energy drinks and then redeeming a code through Comics Mixology. Written by Bortosz Sztybor, art by Giannis Milogiannis, color by Roman Titov. If this even is a Cyberpunk 2077 story, but I'll get to that. The story focuses on a washed-up, alcoholic journalist who has spent his life's work fighting against corporations by uncovering their misdeeds, in particular a company called Arasaka. Giannis' art style is a little bit bland. The backgrounds lack detail, but the characters are easily distinguishable. Writer Bortosz gives us a decent enough mystery, but it lacks any weighty action in the pages and has a lackluster ending. My biggest gripe about this comic is that I'm not sure it was originally written to be a Cyberpunk 2077 story. One panel more than the others gives this away. I don't know how anybody in editing or proofreading didn't manage to catch this. First off, the city in this panel does not look like a Cyberpunk 2077 city. And oddly, the corporation the protagonist has been attempting to bring down, he's told they are expected to be out of Night City by 2024. Excuse me? What? That's 3 years from now, not 50 years into the future. I could forgive one mistake, but when both the art and narrative fail to match up with Cyberpunk 2077, I assume that this was written and drawn for something else. So it's been brought to my attention that the Johnny Silverhands takes place in the Cyberpunk 2077 timeline, but about 50 years prior. So this actually does line up with Cyberpunk 2077, but there's nothing in this book that tells you that. I still feel a little cheated. I also find it odd that each comic has less and less pages of actual storyline. Issue 1 has a nice fat 24 pages. Issue 2 clocks in at a respectable 19 pages, but the final issue finishes out at a skimpy 17 pages. I'm not sure if this is a pacing problem or what. If anybody out there knows, please let us know in the comments below. The second worst, or third best, Cyberpunk 2077 comic is Big City Dreams, published by CD Projekt Red, a digital-only GOG exclusive. Written by Bortosz Sztybor, art by Alessio Fiornello. The commingling of 2 up-and-coming street criminal scavengers and the life story of a farmer whose family left him for the big city. Once things get rolling, the end of the story is pretty predictable, but the journey is enjoyable enough. The art style and color isn't particularly detailed or impressive, but is serviceable and even enjoyable if you like what I think of more of a doodly style. Of all the Cyberpunk 2077 comics, I think this one has the worst art and only one other has a story this bad. Big City Dreams and Where's Johnny were a close tie for which deserved to claim the bottom slot. The second best Cyberpunk 2077 comic is Cyberpunk 2077 Trauma Team, published by Dark Horse and is to date the only Cyberpunk 2077 series to not be published by CD Projekt Red, but that's most likely because they needed to work with a publisher for physical distribution. I do remember reading that some or all of the digital Cyberpunk 2077 comics by CD Projekt Red are being put into a physical trade at some point, so look for each of these in some form of physical capacity later this year. This one is written by Cullen Bunn, with art by Miguel Valderrama. The story follows a central character, Nadia, who works for a militarized corporate medical unit. On her previous mission, all of Nadia's team members, one of which was her lover, were killed off by one man. Nadia is reassigned to a new team who is tasked with a risky extraction. Upon locating the target, she discovers they are extracting the same man who killed off her previous team and lover. The conflict comes down to what choices she'll make on the current mission due to her diverging loyalties. Nadia is torn between vengeance, responsibilities to her new teammates, and the need to complete the job. This is a decent enough story, but nothing in the way it's written makes me feel like this is taking place in the world of Cyberpunk 2077, as opposed to any other corporate sci-fi dystopian future. Maybe it's not a fair comparison, but I kept thinking about Rick Remender's image title Tokyo Ghost. While reading Rick's work, it made me feel like his story was taking place within a very distinct and living world that was a very cyberpunk-esque place, but it had its own identity. On the other hand, Trauma Team's Cyberpunk 2077 has nothing in it that makes it feel like it's anything other than a generic sci-fi future. Just like the previous two titles, it leaves me wondering, why make a Cyberpunk 2077 comic unless I feel you were pulling me into that world and showing me something unique to it? Art by Miguel Valderrama suits the material he's covering. The characters are well drawn, distinct, and backgrounds have plenty of detail. This is a passable, fun, light read, but don't expect to come away feeling more immersed in the world. The best of the Cyberpunk 2077 comics, and the only one I would recommend reading, is Cyberpunk 2077 Your Voice, published by CD Projekt Red. A code to redeem a digital copy of this was given out with the standard release edition of Cyberpunk 2077, possibly as a pre-order bonus. Additional information about where this one wasn't included was hard to come by. Colors, Krzystof Ostrowski. We get two writers on this one, Aleksandra Motyka and Macin Blacha. Aleksandra has written for CD Projekt Red previously with The Witcher of Flesh and Flame. A transit maintenance worker gets tied up with a woman stealing information as part of a corporate espionage plot. Art by Danijel Zezel gives us his characteristic thick inks, and some really great colors by Krzystof Ostrowski. If you like the line work and inks in this comic, check out Brian Wood's series Starve, published by Image, which Danijel does the art for. It's only about 10 issues and is an extremely enjoyable read. I was shocked by how good a book about a divorced, gay, has-been ex-reality show star chef could be. Both the story and art are better than anything on this list. Anyway, since this comes with the game, for the average consumer, this is the only Cyberpunk most people will read, and therefore should be seen as something of an introduction to the world of Cyberpunk. I only wish at least one version of this game had come with this as a physical book, but considering many people may never do more than passively flip through it once or twice, yay for saving trees, I guess? This story exposes how, in the world of Cyberpunk 2077, going about a simple job can lead to adventure in one's daily life, while at the same time weaving in a little sci-fi cybertech subplot. The end comes in with a nice twist on the nature of entertainment and the nature of the world of Cyberpunk. This should be the type of story used for all Cyberpunk 2077 comics. As for the art, I'm not sure who is more responsible for the overall look of the book, as many of the scenes have a painted look, and some of the more impressive backgrounds leave me wondering where the art and inks of Danijel begin and where the work of colorist Krzystof picks up. Detailed backgrounds give the city a rough, gritty feel. Overall, this was a great read, with a superb art style that suits its material. I would love to see more Cyberpunk 2077 stories take this direction. There we go. 2 one-shots and 2 series. My brief stint into Cyberpunk 2077 wasn't painful, but it certainly didn't leave me clamoring for more. Most of these stories feel like CD Projekt Red hired a writer or bought an existing unpublished comic that was then poorly adapted over to the Cyberpunk 2077 universe. Or not. The exception being the final one I covered, Your Voice. The biggest problem here is if I go and I spend money on becoming more invested in a world, I want to feel like that money was well spent. Give me something that helps me understand your world more or shows me how cool it can be. By hiring so many different writers who don't have a clear picture of the world these stories are taking place in, it makes most of these stories feel disconnected from the supposed source material. This then has the opposite effect of what they want, which is to make the consumer feel more invested in their fictional world. These comics suffer from what way too many marketing tie-ins suffer from: mediocrity. The next Cyberpunk 2077 series comes out in April of 2021 and is titled You Have My Word. I don't have much confidence in it as the story is being written by Bortosz Sztybor, who wrote Where's Johnny, the last place book on this list, the first one I covered. Hopefully this time Project CD Red ensures that the story takes place squarely within the Cyberpunk 2077 universe. This isn't a 7-Eleven giveaway here. Consumers are going to be putting their cash on the table for this one. And considering their recent product launches, I think Project CD Red needs a win.
So it's been
here.
brought to my attention that
if you like
Johnny
this